Mr. President, one of the world's most beloved children authors, Dr. Seuss, once wrote, "A person is a person, no matter how small." All children around the world deserve to grow up in an environment where their dignity and human rights are respected and their aspirations are valued. Yet too many in parts of the world, children are targets of violence and casualties of conflict. Abuses against children in armed conflict not only tear at our hearts, they unravel entire communities and destroy the fabric of a society. An estimated 2 million children have died as a direct result of armed conflict over the last decade, and many more have been permanently disabled or seriously injured. Mr. President, in the Middle East, terrorists regularly single out children in their attacks. In June, millions of Israelis were numb with awe when they learned that Hamas terrorists kidnapped and murdered 3 Israeli teenagers, Eyal, Gilad, and Naftali, as they made their way home from school. There is just one of many attacks targeting Israeli children. Over the summer, over 3,800 rockets and mortars were fired into Israel, an average of 1 rocket every 10 minutes. These rockets landed on Israeli kindergartens, playgrounds, and homes. 4-year-old Daniel Tragerman of Kibbutz Nachal Oz was one of the tragic casualties of these attacks. Daniel's mother, Gila, sent a letter to the Secretary General this week in which she wrote, and I will read directly from her letter. Daniel, 4.5 years old, was killed in our house while playing with his sister in a tent built indoors and not outside because it's dangerous. He was killed from a mortar shell that was shot by terrorists from Gaza. He died in our hands. Daniel died in front of his little sister, who was 3.5 years old. He died in front of his baby brother Uri, only 4 months old, and right before our eyes, his mother and father. Daniel was killed from a mortar shell that was fired by Hamas members from an elementary school for boys in Gaza City. It wasn't a stray shell. It was an accidental death. From that school, terrorists fired deliberately at the kibbutz to murder civilians, children, women, and old people. End of quote. Today, over 1 million Israeli children live with the threat of Hamas missiles. 1 in every 3 children living in communities near Gaza has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Thousands of these children cannot sleep at night and refuse to go outdoors, for good reason. In recent weeks, the IDF has discovered dozens of terror tunnels leading from Gaza to the doorsteps of Israeli communities. Hamas planned to use these tunnels to send terrorists into the hearts of these communities to kill and kidnap as many people as possible. As a father who raised 3 children in Israel, I can tell you that Israeli children grow up in an abnormal reality. They go to school with security guards, they walk through metal detectors in malls, and live with bunkers in their buildings. They grow up thinking all this is normal. Each and every day, Israeli parents worry about their children and what if their children will be the next victim of a rocket attack, a kidnap attempt, a suicide bombing, or stone throwing. Mr. President, Israel is committed to upholding international law and takes great measures to ensure the protection of civilians. In contrast, radical extremist groups like Hamas see no problem with using civilians and children to achieve their ends. They deploy minors as suicide bombers and recruit them to carry out attacks against Israeli civilians and soldiers. They send children deep underground to dig their terror tunnels, and they place children in harm's way by using schools, hospitals, civilian neighborhoods as a base for their terror activity. During Hamas's most recent escalation, terrorists booby-trapped hundreds of Palestinian homes and went so far as to use children's bedrooms and even baby cribs to hide explosive and conceal terror tunnels. Hamas also launched an M75 rockets from a children's playground located in the Sajahia neighborhood. Dozens of other rockets were fired steps from Gaza schools, including the Al-Waqf al-Sharia school, the Sinai school, the Khaled Al-Alimi Girls' School, and the Shahada Al-Manar Boys' School. And of course, we all were aware that at least on 3 separate occasions, rockets were found hidden in UNRWA schools. I can assure you that Hamas didn't place them there because it had added rocket science to the school curriculum. As Dr. Seuss wrote, and I quote, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better." Thank you, Mr. President.